Okay, everyone, good morning. What are we at, Ryan? Thursday morning. And I sense people are going to be in quite a good mood today. I'm seeing the comments already, and generally people are very happy. Maybe that's got something to do with the fact Celtic won last night. Maybe it's got something to do with another game that happened up north. Yeah, interesting evening. It was certainly a lot happened. Maybe not quite as much at Celtic Park, but we got the job done, Ryan, and 9 points ahead of our rivals now, which is always a nice thing to be able to say, especially 10 games into the season.
Yes, 9 points clear of one of our rivals. The other team are doing really, really well to keep track of and keep on level scoring with and level points with Celtic at this moment too. You know, you've got to give huge credit to Aberdeen. They've managed to take 4 points off of Celtic and Rangers respectively in the two games that they've faced them so far, getting that point at home, getting that point away from home against Celtic and getting the 3 points last night against Rangers. So Jimmy Tilleen's done a tremendous job at Aberdeen, and they're going to be tough opponents at the weekend. Already looking for, I mean, it's 2 days away, but I'm already really looking forward to that game at Hampden. Saturday night under the lights, floodlights will be on potentially, National Stadium. I think Hampden's always better the later it is in the day. I always think it adds to it. I think it's just going to be one hell of an atmosphere. Looking forward to getting to that and sampling that and watching that game unfold. But yeah, job was done last night. 9 points clear of Rangers. That's already quite a sizable gap. And with the way that the two teams are playing, I know Celtic didn't play to their best last night, but they didn't need to be anywhere near their best in order to get the 3 points. That's not a bad habit to be in if you're not playing at your best. Just grind out results because it's still the 3 points that you get regardless of how well you play. Got the job done and move on to League Cup matters at the weekend.
Yeah, interesting Celtic wise last night. Wouldn't you just know it that the leaked team that was doing the rounds turned out to be the actual team, and Lewis Palmer was starting, and Hyunjin Yang was starting, and Anthony Ralston was in, and Greg Taylor was back, and we got to see Cameron Carter-Vickers and Auston Trusty beside each other for the first time. So there's plenty to discuss. I just thought first half I thought we actually started the game quite quickly. Well, Dundee actually started the game really quickly, and they had that chance, which, by the way, was a fabulous save, I thought, from Casper Schmeichel
Unbelievable.
inside the first minute. And I hope that doesn't go unnoticed because he had nothing else to do in the game. I think the fact he was able to pull off a save, I was saying earlier, Ryan, for me, potentially the best save he's made so far at Celtic. He had a few in Bergamo. I remember one in the derby near the end was really good, but for me, first minute of the game, getting down that low to your right and tipping that away because that was right in the corner. I thought that was a really good save, and I just want to mention that because I don't, as I say, I don't want it to go unnoticed. I think if we'd lost a goal there, would have still come back to win the game, but equally. You don't want to go behind early, and I just think he deserves credit for that. I think he's playing really well at the moment, Casper Schmeichel.
Yeah, he looks like a guy that's in a really good place at the moment. He's happy where he is. He didn't take long to settle in, and that helps with the fact that he's worked under Brendan Rodgers previously. But he was tested very early on with that chance, and it was a great save. It was one of those snapshot saves that I thought it was going in the back of the net from where I was sitting. I thought it was going to go in the back of the net, but it's a cat-like reflex from Casper Schmeichel, even at 37, bringing out a save that you would have expected from him 10, 15 years ago. To see that he's still at that level and can still pull off that magnitude of save is positive, and it completely it vindicates Brendan Rodgers' decision to bring him here because he's older than Joe Hart. People were thinking, "Oh, Celtic need a younger goalkeeper." I was saying that Celtic needed a younger goalkeeper. My goodness, I think he's been a tremendous signing so far. Arguably, been Celtic's best signing this summer in terms of squad continuity and bringing confidence in the back. There's a reason why Celtic aren't conceding a lot of goals out with that shock result against Borussia Dortmund. It's because they've got somebody like Casper Schmeichel sitting behind the defence and really ushering instructions to them and being that calming presence, because it was a loss losing Joe Hart, because not just because he was a good goalkeeper, but because of what he brought off the pitch as well, and the camaraderie he had with the players. But you've got that, and maybe even more so with Casper Schmeichel. I remember in one of his first interviews, he was talking about the fact that he didn't want to be treated as the 37-year-old. He wanted to be one of the lads in the team and get on with the younger players. And by all accounts, that seems to be the case. And they can rely on their goalkeeper to pull off big saves and big moments. That can completely change the course of the game if Dundee score, because then all of a sudden they can sit in and really try and keep that result. I know it would be another 89 minutes they'd have to hold on, but it can change things, and that can filter through to the other game as well, because they would have been keeping tabs on the score at Celtic before kick-off. That can give a team a bit of a lift that, Celtic might drop points. But in order to make that, but because he made that save, it stayed at nothing each. And apart from that, I think that was really their only chance. I can't really think of any other chance. I think Trusty and Carter-Vickers kept them really quiet, and Schmeichel, you were judging him on his distribution rather than anything else after that, because he had nothing to do in a saving capacity.
Yeah, Dundee didn't really create anything else. They were very defensive last night, and I do struggle with these games. And to be honest, I have a bit of sympathy, I guess, for Celtic. I guess we don't need it, because obviously we have far more money than teams like Dundee. But at times it's difficult, I think, for the team when you go out and Dundee have, I don't know, 8 or 9 players camped in like the final third, the third that we're attacking at all times. And especially when you add in the fact that the manager made a number of changes last night. And that definitely had a factor. And we can chat about that. And I know that the comments are coming in, and Lewis Palmer getting a lot of criticism, Yang getting some criticism. And to be honest, I feel similarly, but we can come on to that. But the point I do want to make is we had chances early on in the game, both for Kyogo. The first one was a brilliant pass from Ralston, who I didn't think was didn't think he was particularly good yesterday, but he had a really good pass early on, Ralston. And I guess it was a good save, and I don't think Kyogo did a lot wrong with that chance, because he kind of took a good part, got the shot away.
The second chance that he had.
The second one was just such a sitter. And I think if he scores that early on, which you would expect him to do, it's interesting, because it's you potentially go on and win that 3-0, 4-0. And I think the whole complexion of how we feel about that performance on its own changes, and potentially you look at some of the performances and maybe think that they were better than they were, if that makes sense. So I think that was a big moment for Kyogo, and disappointing. Sean saying we have to discuss Kyogo. I don't think there's anything major to worry about personally. For me, like the encouraging thing with both those chances was, one, he looked really sharp for both of them until the finish, and two, his touch was good for both of them. Like he got the shots away, managed to work the space, especially the first one. If he scores that, it's a terrific finish. But he does need a goal, I think. But you wouldn't back against him doing that at Hampden, where we know he loves a goal on Saturday.
As I was saying to Tony last night, I'd back him from about 20, 25 yards out. But honestly, I didn't expect him to score those chances, because he misses too many of those. He misses far too many shots from close range. He's not as prolific as what he was. I'm not going to criticise Kyogo, because he got into those positions. It was a bad miss, the second one. I think everybody expected him to score. But then again, at the same time, you're like, well, he does miss these chances game after game. You expect him in the big moments to come alive. And if he was prolific, if he was more prolific, then his goal return would be so much better than what it is. And it is pretty good at this moment in time, in terms of his overall Celtic career. But it would be even better if he actually took more of the chances that he got. And that's all because of his good movement. Sometimes I think he's surprised that he's got into as much space with his good movement, that he kind of takes it as a surprise, and then he doesn't do as well in front of goal. But it's too many big chances that he's missing. Thankfully, in the second half, Celtic got the 2 goals, and they won the game. But in other games, it's going to cost you if you miss chances like that. If he gets chances like that against Aberdeen, he's got to take them, because I don't think Celtic will get as many chances as what they did last night, or in full, or as quickly as they did in that game. It's going to be a bit of a firefight between the two sides on Saturday. So when those chances do fall to him, he's got to make the most of it. I back him to do that in the big games against Aberdeen, but I do think there are some question marks over that finish in particular, because I'm still to do the stats bomb report, but I can pretty much guarantee that'll be a high scoring XG chance because it was right in front of goal. It was a great touch to get it out his feet, and then inexplicably he misses the target. And it's not as if it was a close miss the target and it just went past the post. It actually goes quite a couple of yards further, and he really should be scoring that sort of chance. I've only seen it once, but I only really need to see it once because I remember how bad the miss was.
Yeah, I agree with this comment from Ian. I'd be more worried if Kyogo wasn't getting any chances. The goals would come, might be low in confidence. That's how I feel. The encouraging bit for me was that, as I say, he got in the positions to have those chances. I just think, I guess Aberdeen coming up, but more Leipzig next week. Chances might be at a premium. We might get that big chance, and we really need Kyogo to be that ruthless forward that he was, last season's Champions League campaign. Remember, Atletico Madrid, Lazio, home games, ruthless. But I really wouldn't be surprised if that all clicks into gear over the next couple of games. I just think it's worth mentioning. But yeah, if that goes out, I think it's a much easier evening for us. As it was, from that point, I think we just struggled to create much in the first half. It was all pretty slow, and I think Lewis Palmer was part of that, probably a pretty big part of that. He's just very slow for me. And yeah, there was one moment in the first half when we were on a counter attack and the ball worked over to him, and it was a great opportunity. And if that's Dyson Maeda or James Forrest or Nicholas Kuhn, they're driving forward, and I think he cut back. You could actually hear, you'll have heard better than me, but you could hear Celtic Park audibly quite frustrated at that moment. And I always think it's difficult for a player when they reach that point when the support really don't have much confidence. And it wasn't even as if that was a major moment. It was kind of relatively early on in the game. We were still goalless and he still kept the ball, but the reaction was very loud. I think Celtic TV even commented on it, and it just kind of reminds me of the Mikey Johnson stuff as well. And I just think especially for a creative player, when you reach that point where it doesn't take much for the Celtic support to be frustrated, and I think rightly so. And I just think it's difficult for Palmer. It was another opportunity for him last night. I don't think he was absolutely awful. I think he was probably better than he's maybe been in some games that he's played recently. What was the one? Was it Falkirk? He was much better last night than Falkirk, I would say. But still, yeah, it's just not going to work. He's not a good fit for the team. He's got no pace. And other than hitting long range shots, which he's relatively good at and had a good one in the second half last night, but if they're not going in, then I don't really see what he's offering. It's tough to say because I have no reason not to like him and I want him to succeed, but I just don't think it's going to work, to be honest.
He's got no pace whatsoever, and I completely agree with everything you said. I said all of those things in the post-match. I did actually mention the sort of Mikey Johnson similarities as well with the audible groaning in the crowd. And players do hear that. Yeah. I mentioned all of that last night, so it's good we're on the same page with that. It's very difficult. Tony and I sort of disagreed on the fact Tony was saying he thinks he's better than what he is. I actually think it's the opposite, and he's completely short of confidence that he can't do anything, and he thinks he's a lesser player than what he is, because he is a better player than what he's shown at this moment in time. He showed it from September to November, December of last year.
Was that a purple patch? That was also in a Celtic team that wasn't as free flowing as this current one. It's almost as if he was a good fit because we were playing at a certain level, and now Celtic have gone up the way and he's been unable to match it.
Could be. And if that's the case, then that's unfortunate. I did mention last night that I think Celtic will be back in for Balikwisha in January. They didn't go and try and sign anybody else in that left wing position after going for him quite extensively in the summer transfer window, almost as if they're waiting on him to test his fitness to see if he's back and he's fully fit before going back in for him. The boy that's at Royal Antwerp, the Belgian under-21 international. I think that would be a good move, bringing in somebody because I don't think Palmer at this moment in time is competition for Dyson Maeda. The only reason he was brought into the team was because Dyson Maeda was used as like a second striker, as cover for striker, because Kyogo was only recognised forward and Admida was out. Thankfully, it looks as if he'll be back for the weekend, as is Kuhn and Cal McGregor, which is really good news. But at the moment, Palmer's not really contributing anything. He did get better as the game went on slightly, but I just don't think it's a great fit. And even I'm saying that, and I want him to succeed. I'm desperate for him to succeed at Celtic, but it's just it's not a great fit. It's too slow. When the ball goes out to him, the ball needs to be really in front of him, and then there has to be nobody marking him. And the likelihood of that happening in a Celtic team, where Celtic are usually double teamed by defences, it's very, very rare that he's going to get that opportunity to have, a free run at goal. That counter attack that you spoke about, there was another guy coming back, like he was in front of his marker, but you knew that other guy was coming because Palmer was slow, and it's not as if he's being lazy. It's just I don't think he's got any motor in him
Yeah,
whatsoever. Not quick, and
again, you
he's
wonder
quite
about
easy.
the last summer, like why, when you know that Brendan Rodgers' teams always have good wingers, quick wingers, Scott Sinclair, Patrick Roberts, to the modern day, and guys like Kuhn and Maida. You wonder why the signing of Palma was sanctioned as a replacement for Jota, because surely you would only have had to take it. We noticed in the first game when we saw Palma two things: that he wasn't a player who was going to go and skin players. He's never going to be that player, and also that he's incredibly right-footed. And none of those things have really changed. I want to leave it there with Palma because it's not the time to absolutely lambast someone. Things are good at Celtic, and it's just not working. And I expect him to leave at some stage, either in January or next summer. And it's fine. I know he was compared to Haksabanovic by Hugh, which I think is a pretty apt comparison. I think there's certain similarities in those guys. Again, don't want to go on for ages. Just Yang for me, different to Palma. I think he does have pace. It's weird. He's almost the opposite of Palma in that if you could give Palma Yang's pace and kind of what's the word? Kind of direct running, then I think Palma would be a hell of a player. And equally, if you gave Yang Palma's maybe crossing, I know he shanked one out last night, but crossing and shooting ability, then Yang could perhaps be a good player. But it just seems to me like watching Yang that I never get a feeling watching Yang that he's going to go and dribble past 3 or 4 players. It just all feels like he's just going to run into the back of someone or something like that. And opportunity for him last night. We should say that it's his cross that sets up the first goal. So maybe I'm being a little bit harsh, but I wasn't totally blown away by his performance. But let's do positives, Ryan, because the subs made a difference, and Alistair Johnson especially can't stop scoring.
I was talking about him last night, and I absolutely love what Alistair Johnson brings this team. It was quite weird, and I was saying this to Tony last night. It was weird seeing him coming off the bench because you're not used to him being on the bench. I was like, who is this that's coming on? Then you realise, oh, it's Alistair Johnson, right? Okay, I'm not used to him being in that specific position, but he gives you an oomph coming off the bench that Celtic need, and Ralston does give you that on the right hand side. But Johnson gives you that for a bit of quality as well. I think there's levels between the two players. I don't think anyone's going to dispute that or disagree with that. Johnson, immediately when he came on, you knew that he was there to make a difference. And it's like bringing another captain onto the pitch and another leader. And players feed off of him as well. It only took him 3 minutes to score. He's in the right place at the right time. I actually think he gives the ball to Yang before working his way into the box. Is he the one that gives it to Yang before then moving in? I'll need to double check that goal, but it looked as if it was Johnson that gave the ball to Yang and then immediately moved in. Brendan Rodgers last night was speaking about how he seems to be enjoying scoring goals at the moment. That's a good that's a good omen for Celtic and a good outlet. And this right back that's scoring goals, as I said last night in the Scottish Premiership, he isn't getting penalties or free kicks or that. He's scoring from open play, getting into really good areas. I think he's been one of Celtic's standout players so far this season. Couple of bad performances here and there, one against Borussia Dortmund especially, but for the most part, I think he's been a 7, maybe 8 out of 10 most games. And I'm really enjoying what he's bringing to the team at the moment. He just gets it. And I say that a lot about Alistair Johnson, that he's a player that really just gets what it means to play for Celtic. And I hope that Celtic can tie him down to a new deal very soon.
Yeah, I'm just watching it now. It's Carter-Vickers plays it to Johnston, and then Johnson plays it out to Yang and runs into the middle. And the ball kind of takes a deflection. It's a funny a funny finish the way he kind of comes out of nowhere, but it's almost like a kind of striker's finish the way he just gets something on the ball. And 4 goals he scored this season. I think only 2 players in Scotland have actually scored more goals in the league than Alistair Johnson this season. No, none of them at Celtic. I think McGregor and Kyogo both have 4 in the league. So fabulous stuff. Then we get the second soon after that. I know there's a bit of debate about a potential foul on Silla, the Dundee player, I think by Engels, but it wasn't for me. And it's a definite penalty. I saw someone saying earlier they thought it was soft, but the guy, what it says, Portales has his
Vitala's.
hand on Kyogo's kind of arm and tugs him back. And it's a definite penalty.
Yeah, it was a definite penalty, but I cannot believe it wasn't brought back for the foul on Silla. Arne Engels completely takes Silla's jersey and tugs him back. And for whatever reason, and you've got to call a spade with these situations. It's a clear foul on Silla. And it happened about 20-25 seconds before the penalty was given. It was like that counter that led to the penalty. I was very surprised that they didn't bring it back. Not a massive amount of chat about it, but I think everybody was sort of expecting, because when VAR was checking for a penalty for the foul, I thought it was a foul in the lead up to the goal, because I thought it was pretty straightforward that the player had been brought down in the box and they were actually going back 20 seconds. But there was no complaints, and Arne Engels stepped up and took his penalty well. And that was basically the game. And it was it was a sigh of relief. You could then watch what was going on in the other game without worrying about what was happening at Celtic Park, because you knew that Celtic were going to get the 3 points. They weren't going to squander that 2-goal lead. That even though Dundee could have got a penalty at the end, was it for Hatate? There was a bit of confusion in the stadium on that.
The handball, wasn't it? But clearly didn't come to anything.
Yeah, but Engels stepped up and took the penalty. But honestly, I can't really think of anything else he done in the game apart from that. Maybe the shot that he had from outside the box.
It was his pass, wasn't it, for Kyogo that wins the penalty?
Yeah, so I guess it's a good contribution from him all in that goal. But I don't want to be too harsh on him. I do expect a little bit more from him in games like that, especially in a midfield that was him, McCowan and Bernardo. He's getting trusted to be the creative outlet in that midfield three. I don't necessarily think that will be his role going forward. I think maybe he might play deeper for Celtic in the years to come. I think that's where he played a lot of his games for Augsburg, and I think they're just trying to figure out what position he plays best in. If he can play in that number 6 role, it'd be really ideal, and it means that you can move Cal McGregor further forward. But he stepped up and took the penalty. Really calm, good from 12 yards. But I'm just looking for a little bit more from, especially because we know how good he can be with how well he started at Celtic against the likes of Hearts, Rangers, Slovan Bratislava, etc. The levels have dipped ever so slightly, but I want to see him get back up there. He's going to be a big player for Celtic on Saturday. If he steps up and has a good game, then you'd think he has a big part to play in Celtic winning against Aberdeen on Saturday.
I thought he was all right. I think just generally it wasn't a sparkling performance. Listen, it wasn't a game that you're going to remember for very long. It was just a case of winning the game, and I don't think you can really fault the team at the moment. Like last night, we made changes. And I think we might see the benefit of that this weekend, because Aberdeen obviously had I was going to say a much harder game last night. You might say that's debatable at the moment, but certainly in terms of what they will have put into that game to get that win against Rangers, I think it's fairly obvious that that will have taken more out of their players than the game took out of our players last night. And we managed to rest a number of players. I mean, the 3 injury worries. Brendan Rodgers spoke last night, and it's good news, everyone. I know some of you asking about Ida and Kuhn. Rodgers quoted as saying, Ida, Kuhn and McGregor will all be fine for the weekend. Callum could have been involved tonight, but there was no need to risk it. Kuhn had an issue with his hip after the weekend. Again, no need to risk it. Good news on Adam with the scan. He got away with it after the challenge, and hopefully he'll be ready for Saturday. So that's great news. We're going to have, ideally, Ida, Kuhn and McGregor back, and certainly Kuhn and McGregor will go back into that team. and you're going to have Alistair Johnson back in the team and Maida back in the team.
Potentially Scales as well.
Yeah, potentially Hatate comes in. So there will be changes. And I just think that last night was probably never going to be anything other than that kind of win. Because we do have much bigger games coming up. I mean, especially these next two games are huge games. It's a huge week for the team when you look at it. I mean, if things go well, we can be in the final of the cup and we can pretty much be there in terms of the last 24 of the Champions League. If we beat Leipzig, we'll all feel like we're very close. So that can all be achieved over the next few days. And I think last night was probably just about getting the win and resting a few players, and maybe finding out about a few players as well. So I feel good generally. It's going to be a hard game on Saturday. Aberdeen beat Rangers last night, everyone. I don't know if you know that, but they did very well. And as you said at the top of the show, Ryan, ourselves and Aberdeen are 9 points ahead of Rangers.
Yeah, it's been quite an incredible start from Aberdeen, to be honest with you, and they're there on merit. It's not as if they've been lucky in every game that they've played. Look at the body of work that they've constructed and the amount of games that they've played. They've only dropped points in one game, and that was against Celtic, in a game that really Celtic should have won with all the chances that they had. But Aberdeen had a really good second half in which the 15 minutes that they played, they could have easily been 3-2 up if it wasn't for Duke's hand. But then Duke came and saved them at the end. By all accounts, he had a really good game last night against James Tavernier and Rangers. So he's going to be an option. I think he's the biggest sort of positive for Aberdeen at this moment in time, from a player that went AWOL in the summer and the start of the season to now being really drilled in to the way that Thelin wants to play, and he's now starting games. That shows that he's improving players that are already at the club, or players that weren't at the club because they were AWOL and they couldn't find them. But he's back and he's playing well for them. And I wasn't necessarily surprised about the Aberdeen result last night for a multitude of reasons, because Aberdeen have been playing well. Rangers have not been playing well. They're third, and they're probably deservedly third. They're now looking behind them rather than in front of them because there's other teams. Dundee United get beat last night. If they'd have won, then it would have been really close between them and Rangers in third and fourth place. But it's all about Celtic. Celtic just need to keep on winning. The league will take care of itself. I don't think that Aberdeen can keep this up for the rest of the season. They don't have the squad depth that Celtic do. Aberdeen had to play their best 11 last night. It'll be likely 9 or 10 of the same players against Celtic at the weekend, whereas Celtic can call on their captain, their best player, and Nicholas Kuhn, arguably one of their better defenders, and Liam Scales, Maeda, their hardest working player. All of these players have been either rested or they've either played a small part last night or not any part whatsoever, and they're rested and they're back in. Also, you can bring on Adam Ida off the bench. It's that squad depth that'll be the difference between Aberdeen and Celtic this season. As much as is not enjoying it, and enjoying's maybe the wrong word, but it's a breath of fresh air seeing Aberdeen do so well. I don't think they've got the squad to keep it going from now until the end of the season. If I'm proved wrong, then so be it. But I just see them falling away. I mean, in the winter months when they're playing 2 games a week, it's difficult for a team that have such a settled 11 or a settled 9, 10. I don't think they can last the distance, but we'll see. I guess that gauntlet's been thrown down to them. We'll see if they can do it. But at this moment in time, Celtic are in a really good place, and you expect them to keep on pushing forward in all competitions, don't you?
I certainly think Aberdeen can finish second the way they're playing at the moment, and I can't wait for Saturday. I think it's a huge opportunity for the team. Aberdeen are clearly a good side, but I still back this Celtic team if we're really up for it. And I think that game a few weeks ago, I think the team will feel they have a bit of a point to prove, because we should have won that game. We should have won that game in 2 ways, being 2-0 up, but even when it went to 2-2, the fact we weren't able to get that late goal, that heroic defending, right up until the 101st minute, I think the team will feel they've got a real point to prove. And, Hampden Park, Saturday night, it's going to be packed. The atmosphere is going to be amazing. That's going to be, yeah, it's going to be a proper cracker, and as I say, a real opportunity, and I just think Celtic will fancy it. CJ saying, I don't know if joking slightly, but a bit worried about Aberdeen. I think it's going to be a real tough game. I'm not saying we're going to go out and batter Aberdeen, because I think they've proven already, Aberdeen, and I hope I'm wrong here, but they're probably not going to get battered too many times this season, because they're quite a resolute team, and if they go behind in games or are pegged back like last night, they find a way to go again. And obviously we saw that at Celtic Park, but I certainly think it's a game that Celtic can win. Francis saying, not impressed with backup replacements. We definitely need better quality. Palmer once again disappoints. Yang as well. Ralston not got the quality, and missing both McGregor and Hatate in the middle. You want to say something there?
They stay in games, Aberdeen, regardless if they go behind us. And I completely agree with your point. They stay in games and stay resolute, and they've got goal scorers all over their side. They've got Nicky Devlin that's scoring goals from fullback position. You know, they get Graham Shinney that scores goals. Players coming off the bench, Shaden Morris. And they get Duke coming back into the team as well. Esther Saltclaw that scored. Jamie McGrath, apart from his penalty last night, which is one of the worst penalties I've seen in a good while. Apparently, he'd only missed one penalty in his career before stepping up to take that one, which makes it all the more baffling that he took it that way. If anybody's seen it, it's an absolute shocker. He passes it straight to Butland. It's one of the easiest saves you'll see from the Rangers goalkeeper. But they've got goals all over the team. They're a physical side. I think that makes for a good game on Saturday as well. I think it's going to be a well-matched game. You know, two of the top teams in Scotland fighting it out in a one-off game as well. You don't even need to take the league table into consideration. There's got to be a winner on the day. It would not surprise me if it went all the way on Saturday to penalties, because that happened when Aberdeen were, sort of fighting relegation. And they still put in a good fight with a lot of the same players. Those players have been rejuvenated under Jimmy Tilleen. And yeah, I just think it's going to be a really good atmosphere. It's going to be a good occasion, and may the best team win. And fingers crossed that's Celtic on the day, but they're going to have to work hard for it.
We'll need to play better than that Scottish Cup semi, because if we play at that level, I don't think we'll win, because we're really poor that day, I thought, generally. But I think we've come on a long way even from that point. As I keep saying, I think the team will really fancy that one. Steve's saying we require two wingers in January, especially with Jamesy in his last month. Yeah, I want to see two wingers coming in. I think that's needed, because if we're going to want to rest the likes of Kuhn and Maida, which clearly we need to, they can't play every game with the intensity that they play at. We're going to need to sign at least one winger, I think, two in January. So that's the real position that I'm looking at, and I think that will happen. Steve also wondering who plays left back on Saturday, Valle, Taylor or Scales. Tough one. I think Taylor will probably play, because he's our first choice left back.
It's an interesting one. I think he'll go with Baye, to be honest with you, because he's played more games. I mean, although we gave Taylor the 90 minutes, it's difficult to read into it. But if it was me, I'd play Baye, because he's been playing recently and he's used to playing for Celtic now. I felt it was unlucky that he didn't feature whatsoever, but it's good at the same time that Greg Taylor got those 90 minutes. I'm fine with either, to be honest. I don't think Liam Scales will be starting at left back, even though he played 20 minutes there. And I thought it disrupted the flow against Motherwell ever so slightly, having him out there. It was almost like going back to Ange Postecoglou era, seeing him out at left back. It was quite weird in that regard. I think the bigger question is in the centre-back position. Who starts against Aberdeen? Is it going to be Liam Scales? Is he going to come back in? Trusty started the past 8-9 games now, if you look back to it. He's played every game. Is Trusty now one of the first choice centre backs now that Cameron Carter-Vickers is back? I thought he looked a lot more comfortable on his right side, on his favoured side next to Carter-Vickers. Don't really think he put that much of a foot wrong. Neither defender did, but he didn't have to.
Yeah.
No, but it then goes into distribution. And you look into the way that they give the ball out, and he did look more comfortable on that side. So I want to see that partnership grow between the two of them. Do I want to see that against Aberdeen? I'm to and fro, because you like to see Liam Scales in these games, and you think that he'd be up for the battle, up for a physical battle against one of his former teams. But it's a difficult one, and that's why Brendan Rodgers gets paid the big bucks to make those decisions. I think regardless, I'd be happy as long as it's Cameron Carter-Vickers and somebody else at Hampden. You need somebody like him. You need a towering presence that's going to keep it calm. Yeah, I'm fine with either, to be honest. It's a good position for Celtic to be in at this moment in time, having 3 very competent centre halves to choose from.
I'm quite happy with Trusty at the moment. I think he's looking better.
Yeah,
I didn't have a lot to do last night, but he just looks a bit more confident for me now than he did in his opening few games, and obviously that's going to be the case. So I'm quite happy with him. I think it'll be CCV and Trusty. Henrik McLarsson, don't underestimate the high Aberdeen will have going into a one-off cup game. I don't think they have a midweek game next week. I don't think they will because it's Europe. Frankie pointing out Aberdeen aren't used to playing Wednesday, Saturday. Should play into our favour. It's not a huge turnaround, is it? I know it's a late kick-off on Saturday, but I mean we're already at Thursday. The game is in a couple of days, so yeah, it's going to be a good one. But just thought, as I say, last night, job done, move on. I think players to come back who'll make a real difference. I mean, Nicholas Kuhn is our player of the season, and he's going to come back in on Saturday. You would think Callum McGregor, having him back will be really good. I feel like he's been missing for ages, and it's only been a couple of games, so it'll be good to get him back in. There'll be debates about who comes into the midfield. I know Luke McCowan can't play on Saturday, but there's still a debate to be had over, is it Bernardo, Engels, Hatate? So yeah, looking forward to anything else today, Ryan.
I'm just happy with the way that results transpired last night, to be honest with you. Celtic got the job done. Aberdeen won again. It's set up to be quite a good title race between those two sides. At the moment, you've got to say that's the title race between Celtic and Aberdeen because they're level on points after X amount of games. And you know, it's a surprising table, but at the same time, you know, Celtic have managed to stay consistent throughout. The only points they've dropped is to that team, and you know, it's the same for Aberdeen. So, you know, both teams are as good as each other at this moment in time. Yes, the goal difference is far superior for Celtic. Another goal added to that last night, one better than Aberdeen got against Rangers, and another clean sheet as well. So I think the team are in a pretty good place. We now look forward to the weekend against Aberdeen in the League Cup semi-final. It's a chance to play in the first final of the season. You know, these are the games that you look forward to as a Celtic player. I think that it's going to be a battle between Aberdeen, but I'm looking forward to sampling that battle and seeing how it goes. I think it's one to be excited about, and it'll be a very, very good atmosphere, I'm sure. Saturday night under the lights, you simply cannot beat it at all.
Well, we've got tomorrow to preview the game a bit more. Tony, I think, will be back at that stage. So all is well and good. We'll head off for now, everyone. Thanks once again, as always, for joining us. Enjoy the rest of your Thursday. Remember, we're looking for subscribers. So if you've not yet subscribed to the channel, please consider doing that. It's very easy to do. Be much appreciated. And as I say, we'll catch you this time tomorrow.